Well, as we continue reflecting on the legacy of Dolly Parton, we now want to talk about her family farm and her rural roots that shaped her work ethic. Her story reflects why leaving the farm economically doesn't require abandoning the farm culturally. Roger McEowen joins us now with his perspective. Roger, a pleasure. You have written a wonderful blog on Dolly's legacy in rural America and a tribute to American farmers. Talk about why Dolly's life story is so powerful in making this argument that one doesn't have to abandon the farm culturally when they leave for economic reasons.
Yeah, good to be with you, Suzanne, and thank you for the comment on the blog article. And that was largely one of the major points of the article that kind of came to me after I heard about her death early yesterday afternoon. And that is, here's a gal that was one of 12 children that grew up basically in poverty in rural East Tennessee, left the farm, but the farm never left her. And there's a cultural aspect to agriculture and farming that a lot of society is disconnected from and doesn't understand. And I think this is a good opportunity to talk about that because she always emphasized the impact that that small farm growing up in had on her. And that never left her, even though she had all this fame, she had all the wealth that she could ever imagine. And later in her life started pushing that back, putting that capital back into that area in East Tennessee. And we saw that with the books that she has created for children, not only in that area, but across the world too.
Well, let's talk about that disconnect that you were talking about. I feel like maybe we want the benefits of farming, but not invested in those that do it, in those that feed us. Why do we see that?
Well, as every generation goes by, fewer and fewer people are directly connected to the farm. And there may be a great-grandparent, a great-great-grandparent, or maybe perhaps a grandparent that's still connected to production agriculture. But many people are completely disconnected from it. They have no idea where that meal that they're eating, that steak that they're eating, that bread that they're consuming comes from. And they don't even think about it. And they don't think about the work that went into that. You know, somebody had to prepare the seed bed. Somebody had to plant the seed. Somebody had to cultivate that crop. Somebody had to take care of it. Somebody risked their income of the weather wiping that crop out. Then somebody had to harvest it, and somebody had to get it to market and hope that everything went together. And then somebody had to do it again the next year. And we don't often think of that. And Dolly's death is an opportunity to link us back to that, I believe.
Yeah, you know, there are so many links back to the pride that she felt in her rural community and the way she grew up. Work ethic, you mentioned. Dolly, like many kids raised on farming, you learned that. She was known for her work ethic. I was just talking to another artist, Dina Carter, in the last half hour, who said, you know, she was working to the very end. She had dreams and she accomplished them and she was always on to the next thing. She often credited her upbringing. These kids that grew up on farms, different perspective on life and a resilience as well. Would you agree?
It is, yes, I would agree, because what you're thinking about is a legacy. What am I going to leave for the next generation? What kind of imprint am I going to have? And the land is the key with respect to farmers and ranchers. And we see that, I see that in the work that I've done for over 30 years in succession planning and estate planning and tax planning. You want to optimize your positions on those issues so that you leave a legacy for the next generation and subsequent generations. I see that in my own father. He never lived to see what he was starting on our family's farm in Northeast Indiana, but the trees, for example, that he planted, and all of us as kids associated with that helped over the years, those are still growing. And we see that. And Dolly was emphasizing that in her life and her career. She said, you know, that had impacts on it. The work had to get done. She mentioned that in the late 1960s and early 70s, that we didn't even think of it. This was our culture. The work had to get done. And on our little farm, our little acreage we had in Eastern Tennessee, and we see that in her career. She just kept working even up to the last couple of months of her life. And that is the agricultural culture that's out there.
The legacy, you talk about the ability to give back to the community, even though you leave it for economic reasons, you don't leave it completely. She often invested in her rural area. Of course, we could talk about Dollywood being one of the big things, the Imagination Library that she did in her father's honor, who was illiterate. And she didn't, she highlighted that. She didn't walk away from it. She pointed to the fact that there's something that can be done, and to see that grow internationally. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, she was proud of her background, and that's I think that's unique, perhaps unique with farmers and ranchers. Society may diminish the importance of agriculture, not appreciate the importance of agriculture, but farmers and ranchers are proud of that heritage and don't run from that. And that's an important aspect for those of us that are professionals that represent farmers and ranchers. And I try to import this to my students, and that is, you've got to understand the thought process and the culture and what is important to your agricultural clients. And that history and that tradition and that legacy and the land itself is of primary importance. And that never left Dolly, even though she had all of this fame. That's very important. And that really should speak to us loudly today.
I invite everybody to read your blog. I know it is on the RFD-TV.com site. You wrap up your blog, and I thought it was interesting. There is a danger in ignoring farm legacy. What do you mean by that? You said at their own peril.
Well, yeah, we run the risk of losing our cultural identity. When the nation was first formed, the vast majority of people, well over 90 to 95%, were directly tied to agricultural production. Now we're down to 1 to 2% that are tied into agricultural production, but 100% of us eat. And that is the key point there. We can't forget the work that goes into and the culture that produce the food that we're eating. And this gives us a great opportunity to talk about that and highlight that. And I think Dolly would appreciate that.
She absolutely would. Roger, thank you so much. Again, just a wonderful blog. I invite everybody to read it from top to bottom. And thank you for your words today. There is quite the legacy there to rural America and American farming. Roger McEowen with the Washburn School of Law.